Hi, my name is Gary Cruz, and I had a few people ask me how I got 3D text on my DJI Mavic Pro footage. So, for those who haven't seen it, I'll give you an example. Start off with this one. Alright, so that's the first example. The second one is from Bernal Heights. And in this example, you can see it's flat text, but it's actually rotating. The beauty of it is that both processes are the same. I do the text edits in in After Effects, but I do the edits in Final Cut Pro. So let me just give you an example of my workflow. If you're interested in seeing a more detailed workflow on how I edit my videos, just leave a comment below and let me know, and I think I'll put something together. But essentially what I'll do is I'll do a 1 minute edit of my video. And also I'll edit the music that I've chosen to about 1 minute, and then I'll arrange them all in a timeline. So I'm using Final Cut Pro on a 5K iMac. And once I've got all my clips all arranged, that's when I then go through and add the titles, and then I'll go and color grade it. And what color grading means is that basically I'm just adding some color correction. It's just a fancy word, an industry term for color correction. And you'll see that the one that I'm going to be editing with the title does not have any color correction on the right. And the reason is that I like to do the grading after I add the title so that it looks like it's part of the scene. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll go ahead and grab this clip. I'm going to go to Edit and Copy, and I'm going to go to File and New Project. And I'm just going to call this Export Title. Then I'll go over here and paste it right in. And so I'll go to File, and I'll go to Share and go to Master File. And I'll just go ahead and take the title and click Next. Add that to my desktop. And I like using the master file because I render all my clips in ProRes, and it just makes it a lot easier and faster to export that. So it's already complete, which is nice and quick on the Mac. And I'll go ahead and navigate to where that is on my desktop. And I have After Effects open in the background, so I'll just drag and drop that over here in the project window. Now that it's in the project window, I want to make a composition by dragging this over the new composition icon. And now I can go ahead and make some modifications. Now, if you don't see this tracker window here, what I like to do in After Effects is go to my workspace and select motion tracking. Or the other option is you select the name of the clip that you want to edit, go to animation, and click on track camera. So when you click on track camera, this is where the magic sauce happens. Essentially, some really smart people at Adobe put in some algorithms to kind of analyze the footage to replicate the camera movement. Now, back in the old days, I think like After Effects 5, you had to use separate programs like the Foundry Camera Tracker or Buju. But now it's all built in as a built-in plugin in After Effects. You don't need an extra purchase to make that happen. Now you can see that this 4K footage is taking a while. It's going through all the frames. You either have two types, a fixed angle view, which our Mavics have, or a variable zoom. And then under advanced, there's some options here like solve method. I just kept it on auto, but even on here, maybe you might want to select typical. That just gives some more information to After Effects to help it process the file. Also, the other thing that you want to take into consideration is the type of footage that you want to use. Now, you don't want a really long clip. You want to keep it less than 4 seconds. The other thing too is that you want to have enough information and movement in the footage so that After Effects can actually calculate the camera movement. So we've got some buildings in here. We've got this nice floor. Not sure if it's going to use that. We've got some high contrast areas. And if you don't have really good footage in doing the analysis, you have an option here to do a detailed analysis. So since I've done this before, I knew that just doing the regular default will actually solve it. So now it's going to solve for the camera. All right, and then it adds all these points. If you don't see it, let me just go ahead and increase the track point size. This won't show up on your final video unless you actually, export that. So I could select one. I think I hold down the shift here. I could do a couple here to select this. And this circle represents the target area. And the way it previews, it kind of gives you an example of the perspective it's going to be in. So maybe you want to put something against a wall, or maybe on this guy taking a nap there. And what it does is that once it kind of finds 3 points, it'll do a triangulation. But in my example, I see a bunch of points on this fence. And what I want to do is add some text here. Let's see if I can find one that triangulates. There we go. And once you find that, you right click here and create text and camera. And so when you do that, mine defaulted to ray trace 3D, but if yours is on classic 3D, that's where you want to be. And the reason why you want to start off with that is it renders a lot faster, and it gives you a good idea if it's actually tracking to the points. The other thing that you want to take into consideration is this average error. So anything less than 1.5 is acceptable, where your eye doesn't say, hey, that doesn't really look like it's sticking to the environment. Anything less than 1 pixel is great. All right, so now that we have our text on here, we want to kind of move it into place. So click on the text layer, and you'll see like these little icons that represent or how you can move it in 3D space. I'm going to select the X layer and move it back. So I'm holding down the shift key, because if not, it's going to move really slow. And also, if you accidentally click outside of that, it's going to select your title layer. And in order to prevent that, I usually just lock that, because once I'm done working with the camera tracker, I'm just mostly working with stuff that's above it. So now let me just move that into place here, and let's just do a quick preview on what that looks like to see if how well it tracks. And you can see that it did a pretty good job of sticking that text right onto the fence. So the next thing I want to do is double click this, and since I'm in San Francisco, I want to type that in. And you can see that the text is really big. So now I can just kind of go down here, go down to transform, and again I'll hold down my shift key and reduce the size so that it fits right in there. I'm going to move this up a bit. I'm going to click on the arrow tool. See, sometimes I miss that. Okay, now I'm going to move it up in Y space and put it right there. So let's just take a look at how that looks. Oh, that's kind of cool. I'm going to fly right through that A. All right, let's kind of play that. Real time, almost real time. Okay, not bad. All right, so you can go with that and call it a day, and it renders very quickly, as you can see. All right. Oh, and also if you're having trouble rendering it, you can kind of reduce the preview to, let's say, even a third. But when you render it, it'll be full resolution, so you don't have to worry about that too much. All right, and also I frame at 24 frames per second, and depending on your shutter speed, I don't have any ND filters, so there's not really much motion blur. But if you wanted to, you can add some motion blur on this by clicking on this, and it'll simulate motion blur as it kind of goes through. In my example, I didn't have that on. The next thing here is if you wanted to kind of extrude this so that it looks 3D. So you'll see here that the only thing you have here is like material options, and then geometry options, which is blanked out. And the reason why is because you have to change the renderer. So I'll click on that, and I want to switch that over to Ray Trace 3D. Now, one of the things you'll want to do, depending on the speed of your computer, is switch it over to box mode so that it draws a little bit faster. But the higher you make it, let's say if I move it over to 2 or 3, then it becomes a higher quality preview. But I'll go ahead and keep it on box mode. And now you'll see that there's some additional geometry options. So from here, let me just go in and extrude that a bit, make it a little bit chunkier. And you notice that it did get a little thicker, but you can't really see any shadows on this. And the reason why is you need to add a light. So the next step is to go to Layer, New, Light, move it up to 181%, doesn't really matter. You can kind of change it later. And it added a light. The light is here in 3D space. I'm going to move this back a bit. So back would be Z, kind of like towards me. There we go. And that looks fine for the demo. And if you wanted to adjust the brightness of that, you'll just click on the light itself. You can double click it and make that a little bit brighter. Okay. You can kind of move the light a bit. Oh, see there, I just moved the text. Let me undo that. Click on the light and move that on the x-axis, and maybe I'll move it up a bit above the light. Above the text. All right, I think that'll do. And let's see how that looks. A little whoosh right through the A. All right, so once you're happy with that, you can kind of play around with the settings, the way it looks, the colors, etc. I'll leave that up to you to explore. This is really to show how easy it is to do motion tracking in After Effects. Now you want to add this back into Final Cut because that's where my edit is. So now I want to go to Composition, go to Add to Render Queue. It defaults to lossless. However, I'm editing in Apple ProRes. I'll use the LT, which is good enough for this, even in 4K. Click on OK. And let's give it a new name here. And I'll just title that Render so I know the difference. Click on Save. And now that has best settings, I'll make it nice and sharp. And click on Render. I might have to fast forward this depending on how fast it's going to take to actually go through and render this. But it looks like it is. All right, it's complete. So let's go back and import it into Final Cut Pro. I'm going to go back to my project. And so this is the footage that I'm going to replace. Okay, the one without the title. I'll go to where it rendered. And here's the render. And I'll drag that right on top of my other clip and click on Replace. So there we go. And now it plays nice and smooth. Okay, so the next step is to color grade it. So you'll see here there's a color grade. And I'm a lazy guy, right? I've seen a bunch of tutorials and working with the color wheels, and I can do that, but it takes me a while. And what I like using is a plugin in the Magic Bullet suite called Colorista IV. So I'll just drag and drop that right on top of here. And again, like I stated in the beginning, it's best to color grade it after you do the title so that you can try to make the title look like it's part of the scene. And maybe I'll do a tutorial later on how to actually add some reflection mapping on this to make it even look more realistic. But we'll just focus on just that piece and then how I do a quick color grade. So I'll do the guided color correction for this. And I think I can't, sorry, I selected the wrong one. I want to do this clip and then click on guided color correction. And since I film in the DJI 4 D-Cinelike, I'll go ahead and select flat video to start off with. And it'll take you through this wizard and ask you to kind of adjust your black levels. You kind of want to make sure you don't crush it too bad, and you'll see it highlighted in blue. And I'll go with that. And then next up is the white levels. I'm not too concerned about the text, but I'm more concerned about the sky. And we'll just go with that. And then the midtones, there's a little line there that kind of gives you some guidance, and it's really up to you on how bright you want it to be in the middle and how much contrast you want. Okay, that looks pretty good right there. And then the last step is to bring back some color, and I'll just punch that up to about right there. And then I'm sorry, that wasn't the last step. The last step is the color temperature and tint. I won't mess with that right now because I didn't with the other clips. And it does a before and after, but I kind of like to look at it with just turning on the effects on and off from here. So if I just take a look at that, you see it's a little flat and it grades pretty well. Before and after. The other thing that I have is a preset that I've created using Mojo, and what you can do is you can combine presets together. So what I have is a Philippines preset that I'll just drag right on top of this clip here. And you can see that it added a nice extra punch to it, a little warmth. And what I'll do is I'll scroll down here, and it's really made up of two things. One is the letterbox and Mojo. I'll go ahead and turn off the letterbox because I like working with without it when I export to for Instagram, which is like 1080p. But then when I upload it to YouTube, I want a more cinematic look to it, and just add this letterbox here with a 235 ratio. And that pretty much covers that. So let's just take a quick look at that. Let me just turn down the volume on this one a bit because I know it's loud on the recording program. And let's just preview this. Looks good. And since I went through the A, maybe you want to add a little effect here. I think I've got one called a whoosh. Let's see if I got my whoosh in here. Here's some. Let's do this one. Let's just add it right there, and let's listen to what that sounds like. Okay, so there's that. Now let's do one more. Let's go ahead and add one to this. Now this one's already color graded. Again, I'll go ahead and take off the effects. Take a look. Actually, you know what? It's a little dark, so I'll leave that on. Just for the example here. So I'm going to go ahead and edit, copy, and we'll go to a new project. And we'll go ahead and paste that right in there. And sometimes they'll add this extra slug in there. I'll just take that out and just focus on the Port of San Francisco. Export this as a master file. So pretty much the same steps. And we'll call this like a clock tower. And save that. It renders pretty quickly. And then we'll go to After Effects. And we'll go ahead and add that right over here. And we'll do the same process. We'll take that clock tower and create a new composition. And then from here, I can go to Animation, Track Camera. And let's go through that, and I'll track the camera. All right, So this one actually worked out a little bit better with a 0.72 pixel average error. And let's take a look at the point sizes a little bit bigger. And the bigger the dots or the crosshairs, the closer it is, the smaller, the further away it is. And we'll just kind of preview this and see how it looks like. Looks like it's stuck to it. And I'll just go ahead and add a text and camera to this area here. And I'll just double click the text. Let's see. Select the text layer, double click it, and I'll just call this, I don't know, ferry building. Oops. And in this example, I'll go ahead and select classic 3D so it renders faster. And I'll put my arrow tool and move this over to the left. Okay, maybe I want to put a space in between here. And click on the arrow tool again and move this over. And let's just see what it looks like. Okay, looks like it's sticking to the building pretty well. And it looks like I selected part of the clip that isn't actually tracked right, but that's okay. I'll show you how to work with that. Now, you can do some more adjustments, kind of moving it up, forward and backward in Z space and adjusting that. But essentially, I like working in the classic 3D. It's much faster and it renders faster, and it gives me an opportunity to edit my videos quicker. Now, you can get much fancier and use the ray trace 3D, but that takes a lot longer to render. So I'm going to add this to the render queue. Go to the process of making this ProRes. Click OK, OK, and I'll just call this clock tower render. And click on save and render. And so you can see that this is rendering a lot faster. Now, here's a couple of tips when you're dealing with kind of these effects. You want to be, you don't just put effects in there just to put an effect. You really want to kind of focus on, does it add value to the actual video, right? I keep mine relatively short, just put them on titles, but maybe you're kind of pointing out things. I've seen examples where it's, I can add a line to this and say, hey, here's the ferry building, or here's another point of interest. And that would make sense as you're flying over an area and you want to put some 3D text to point things out. But essentially, keep it short and sweet and meaningful. And you're not just throwing effects in there just because you can do so now. I know it gets pretty exciting. You want to kind of go crazy with it, but remember, the classier you keep it, the longer it doesn't age quite as fast. Remember when those fancy transitions, like with the ripple effect, were in place, and the kind of 3D transitions. And you'll find now that these transitions with the zoom is kind of popular, which personally I like. Typically, sticking to straight cuts or even fades. All right, this looks like it's complete. And so that ends my ramble. I'll go back over to Final Cut Pro and go back to my project here. And so this was a compound clip. That's why I included the other section. So what I'm going to do, instead of replacing it, I'm just going to overlay it or put it on top of it. And we'll take that render, put it on top of it here. And the part that I don't need, which kind of cuts out right about here, it looks like. I'll just put it right there. Click my blade tool with pressing B. Select that. Cut that out. see how that plays. Port of Gary Cruz. Well, anyways, that is my tutorial on how to add 3D text to your DJI Mavic Pro or any drone footage. If you have any questions, just put them below. And if you like what you saw, subscribe and let me know what you want to see next. Is it a workflow? How to do some of my color grading? Thanks for watching and have a good day or night. See ya.